What is good, guys? It's Ray J back with another video, and in this one I'm going to be talking about the one and only Tesla stock you should be looking after for the future. I'm also going to break down why tomorrow is going to be an absolutely massive day for the entire market by breaking down SPY and NEO and the QQQ and Nvda and Apple, and talk about why on earth we're going to see a big reaction to the FOMC meeting. I'm going to break down when is the FOMC meeting starting, what the news is saying about the markets and Tesla, what the technicals are telling us, what you should be watching for moving into tomorrow. But before I break anything down about all this information, before I get into any more details about Tesla and what's going on with the share price, I do have to mention a couple of things before starting. Firstly, I'm not a financial planner. Make sure you take none of this as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire Tesla community as a whole. And the last thing is, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link down below in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo, the link down below, and deposit $100 into the account, you are guaranteed 5 free stocks plus a $100 cash reward. The offer ends in just a couple of weeks, so check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. Alright, so Tesla was up 3.55% for the day. It's a little bit green in the after hours. It's actually holding above this 260 resistance in the after hours, showing that Tesla is still looking quite strong. Now, the real question is, could Tesla continue to pump like this, or is Tesla about to get a big rug pull? And honestly, guys, in the morning, we have PPI coming out, so that's going to affect how Tesla moves. But after that, it all depends on the Fed and what the Fed does, and you have to be prepared for that. If the Fed pumps the markets, this could help Tesla explode to much higher levels. If the Fed gives us the rug pull, it's going to cause Tesla to drop very hard. So I'm going to break down what levels to watch for and what's happening for tomorrow. Now, to start us off, why did the market pump more? Now, I broke this down in more detail in my morning video, so I'm just going to briefly talk about this. CPI came out at about 4% overall, lower than expected, but core came out at 5.3%. Core was a little bit as expected, nothing too like big or small, just very, very close to what margins were. But CPI itself was a little bit below expectations, and the market was excited about this. Now, getting a decent CPI does incentivize the Fed to either slow down on policy or at least pause, and that is good for the markets. That's what the market is expecting. Tomorrow morning, we have PPI coming out, the producer price index. It's like CPI, but from the producer side. This is going to be very important. PPI itself is supposed to be at about the previous level, was like 2.3%, so we're hoping for 2.1%, and we're hoping for a 3% core PPI. Now, it's very likely we may see this very close to expectations, so it will affect how the market opens. If it's too hot, the market may cool off. If it's decent, the market may continue to hold. But then after this is going to dictate the Fed's decision to just like some degree. It's not that significant compared to like CPI. But then at 2 o'clock p.m., we have the interest rate hike decision coming out. That's when the Fed is going to make a very important decision. This is going to make the headlines in the beginning. So first, the decision is disclosed in the beginning. Then 30 minutes later at 2:30 p.m., that's when the meeting actually starts. And that's when Jerome Powell is going to be speaking. This is going to be super important. But the biggest thing is going to be this moment right here. Is the Fed about to pause? Now, the stock market is pumping over the hope that we're going to see the Fed pause very soon. The market's very excited. It's very, very ready for it. And we are continuing to see some bullish price action with very bullish looking charts. However, there are other articles saying that the Fed is going to cause a lot of pain very soon, and they're about to rug pull the markets. That's very possible. If it does happen, you have to be prepared for this just to be safe. And that's why I'm going to remain as unbiased as possible in making this video. Now, the market is expecting the Fed to pause. There's a 91% chance, according to the market, that the Fed is going to pause, and about a 9.2% chance that the Fed is going to give us a 25 basis point rate hike. Now, some countries like Canada did surprise many markets, so it is still possible for the Fed to give us a rate hike, but it's not a guarantee, and we're just going to have to wait and see how this goes going forward. I am prepared for anything. The odds greatly favor a pause, but we have to be ready just in case. Now, before I talk about the charts, let's just break down some pieces of news about Tesla just briefly. Many companies out there, such as the Chrysler partners and others out there, are saying that they're not ready to adopt Tesla's connectors, but they are considering it. That's some very good news. They're still considering it, so that's very awesome. And as time goes on, more and more companies will be open to adopting Tesla's connectors, the NACS connectors. And that's good news after GM and Ford have already made their announcements. Now, going forward, this is more bullish news for Tesla, and I do believe this will continue to help them moving forward. Also, the market is talking about how Tesla has extended their win streak to 13 straight sessions. Tesla's continuing to pump again and again and again. and it's continuing to pump with a consecutive 13 wins, 13 green days in a row. This is very exciting. People are very, very excited about this, and I really hope that Tesla continues to pump. But you also have to be aware that Tesla is a little bit overbought, so we have to be careful. Now, once again, being overbought will not matter as much, because what matters tomorrow specifically is going to be the FOMC meeting. But approaching the meeting, we could see more volatility and even a slight slowdown in the market until the decision comes out. So please be ready. I'm going to break down everything in just a couple of minutes. Now let's talk about just a couple of things. The model inventory levels are continuing to drop. The Model X listings are dropping very hard. Model S are down just a tiny bit. The Model Y are dropping quite nicely. And the Model 3 have been dropping. They're curling up just a little bit. But overall, most of the models are still dropping in terms of inventory levels, because demand for Teslas are continuing to go up. That's a good sign for the summer. I'm hoping this continues as we approach the 4th of July. And I'm really very, very excited for what Tesla's about to report over the next couple of weeks/months. Tesla had 161 million in volume. It's getting good volume. It also has very high short interest right now, lots of short volume, and the short volume is still relatively high at about 63% relative to price. Let me also add that we saw 64 million Tesla shares shorted just 4 days ago. Shorts were piling into Tesla, and yet this thing continues to squeeze. We do have a really good setup for a short squeeze on Tesla, but we need confirmation from the Fed. We got half the confirmation from CPI. The rest is now on the Fed. The Fed could cause Tesla to squeeze, or they may cause Tesla to get rug pulled. It all depends on them. The previous data does not matter as much at this point, because it's just going to react to the Fed. And let me just add that some very, very big things are going to be going on. Now, anyways, for Tesla, we're currently trying to fight about this 260 area. We're still trying to hold it, and we'll see what happens tomorrow morning. In the morning, okay, Tesla is going to react to PPI. If it's a little bit hot, Tesla could react a little bit negatively and come right back down below 260 to 257.65. If that breaks, then there's going to be support at 255.7, followed by 254.26, and then 252.5. Those are some minor support zones to be looking out for. And if Tesla, gets a bounce thanks to the PPI report, we could be testing 262.5 and then potentially 266. So PPI, once again, is just the inflationary numbers for the morning. That's going to affect the entire market. But then the question is, what's going to happen during the FOMC meeting and the rate hike decision? And let me just remind everyone, I'm expecting a very big move from the market. Now, one of the most popular stocks I talk about is SPY. I want to break down something important about it. If the Fed announces a pause, okay, if there's a pause, there's a high probability that we're going to go to the next major resistance level. Now, on this chart on Webull, I have minor resistance levels to look out for if you're like scalping or day trading, but the bigger ones are right over here in my trading view chart. Now, for SPY, it has the potential to pump all the way up to 442. That's the next major resistance if we get a nice pump from the Fed, if the Fed announces a pause. If the Fed says that we're not going to pause, we're going to do another rate hike, then we're going to be expecting the market to get a rug pull, and SPY is going to come all the way back down below 420 into the 410s probably. Now, if it breaks 442, however, all the way up here, if we get a pause, if this breaks, that's your confirmation. That's probably going to go all the way up to about 450 or very close to 450. That's a crazy pump. It still is very possible. And typically when the Fed pauses, the market tends to pump, but things could change later on depending on the recessionary factors. We don't know yet how severe the recession is going to be, so we have to be patient on that. But for now, just read the chart in the current time. Don't worry too much about like 10 months into the future. The chart is currently bullish, but we need confirmation because the Fed is going to dictate it. Now, I'm going to talk about a bunch of different tickers than Tesla in just a few minutes. Let me just mention that if we ignore the Fed, if we ignore that factor and just look at the technicals, okay, the charts look bullish. The monthly looks bullish. We're about to get a bullish crossover on the PPO. The weekly is bullish looking at the RSI and the MACD. The daily is a little bit overbought, but it is still more bullish looking. There's no true sign of weakness and the market's holding up. The 4-hour is still in favor of the bulls. There's no true sign of a curl. It is very overbought though, so be careful here. But like I said, guys, the market is still looking very strong. There's no true sign of this thing getting a rug pull yet, as of right now. Will it happen in the future? One day, but for now, I'm not seeing a sign of it. That's why we have to wait for the data. Let's see what PPI causes, and let's see what the Fed does. For tomorrow, like I said before, if the Fed causes the market to pump over the next couple of trading days, if not by next week, SPY is going to make its way up to the 440 area. 442 is going to be the major resistance. If it breaks that, you're going to be watching 450. If the Fed causes the rug pull, SPY is going to come all the way back down below 430 into the 420s, if not lower than that. For GME, all right, I'm just going to go over a couple of these quickly. If the Fed pumps the markets with the pause, GME is going to make its way closer to, I would say, $30 or so, since we're starting to see a lot of money transitioning from the tech sector into the Russell 2000, into many of these like mid cap stocks and even some small caps. So it's helping GME, the rotation in the current cycle. This could help GME hit $30. If not, if you get a rug pull, it's going to come all the way back down to 25, then potentially under 20. For AMD, if we get a big pump after Powell makes his announcements and the Fed, if the Fed pauses, we're going to see AMD approach this 130 level or higher. If AMD sees some bad news from the Fed and the Fed announces that they're going to give us another rate hike, we're going to likely see this thing get rug pulled and come all the way down below 120, below the 200 EMA, even lower than that, probably into like the 115 area. For Tesla, if Tesla gets the bullish pump, okay, so we have some minor resistance levels at 262.5, 266, 270, and 275. 275 to 276 being the major resistance. If Tesla comes down, we're going to have major support at 250, followed by the 240 area. Now, honestly, guys, in my opinion, there are some minor resistances, as I just mentioned, at 257.65 and then 255.7 and etc. If we get a pause, Tesla could continue to uptrend and start breaking a lot of these resistances, and it's likely going to get very close to 270, and if it breaks that, 275 is going to come. If it manages to shoot above 275 to 280, we're likely going to see 290 to 300 very soon on Tesla. But we have to break and hold at 275 at the very least, and if that happens, we could see Tesla get closer to 300. 275 is going to be some confirmation of a much bigger move. We have to wait for that. If we get the rug pull on Tesla, it's going to come below 250 into the 240s. And if 240 fails us, there's a big gap all the way down to the 230s. It's going to come all the way down there. A big rug pull would be coming. I'm not a fortune teller. I don't know what's about to happen with the rate hike. It's very likely the Fed will pause, though, looking at how the market is pumping, how confident the market seems. But I'm always open-minded just in case. I want to make that clear. For NEO, I've been calling NEO out for the last couple of trading days, last few weeks. I've been saying NEO looks pretty good. It looks pretty good. If we look at NEO, this thing was in the 7s. Now it's back to $9, continuing to pump. If the Fed gives us good news, I'm going to refer to a pause as good news for the bulls. Let me just say, if the pause comes, NEO is going to get closer to $10, break above 9.5. If not, it's going to come down to 8.61 and all the way back down to the 8.2s and potentially below $8. For Netflix, if we get the pause, Netflix is going to keep pumping all the way up to 440 plus, get closer to about 450, possibly if it breaks 440. And if it doesn't do so, if we don't get the pause, if they give us another rate hike, Netflix is going to come all the way down to 430, even lower than that, into the 420s, and potentially below 420. For Ford, if we get the rate hike, if we get a pause, okay, for the pause, it has a bullish triangle structure. This is likely going to play out. We could see this thing approach the 15 level and pump pretty nicely. If not, if we get a rate hike, it's going to come all the way down closer to 13.8 and potentially below 13.5 and even lower than that. For the QQQ, if we get the pause, we're going to see the QQQ pump all the way up, in my opinion, closer to 370. It's going to continue to uptrend, break that, and we're going to see 375. If we don't get the pause and they give us a rate hike, we're going to get a rug pull. QQQ is going to come all the way down below 350 and potentially make its way into the 340s or lower than that. The HYG is green, so that's a positive sign for the markets as the bonds traders are starting to buy in and they're becoming more excited. They may know something, they may not. If AMC pumps, we're going to be seeing this thing break 5.25, then potentially get to 5.5. If not, it's going to come down to 4.83, 4.77, then all the way down to the mid or low fours. For the NASDAQ, if we're bullish, we're going to be watching this thing approach this bullish triangle structure to get a breakout, and it's going to make its way up to 13,750 or higher than that, 13,800 potentially if we get a very big pump. If not, if the Fed rug pulls us, we're going to come all the way down to this gap area here. The 50 EMA is at about 13,300 and potentially 13,000 flat. For SPX, if we get a very, very bullish move thanks to the Fed, if the Fed pauses, we're going to be watching 4420. And if that breaks, 4,500 could come. If not, if the Fed rug pulls the markets, we're going to see this thing come all the way back down into 4,300 and below that to potentially 4,200 or lower. So watch those levels carefully. I'm not going to talk too much about the VIX and all these guys. I mean, they're not really telling us anything significant. They're just very flat right now. For Coinbase, if this thing truly sees the Fed pause, Coinbase has the potential to retest the 200 EMA and get closer to the mid 50s. If not, it could even get to this higher level at like 57. If not, if the Fed rug pulls us, it's going to come down to 50 and break below that. We can see the mid 40s. For Aapl, if we get some very bullish news, it has to break above 185. If it breaks that, we could see some unmarked territory at 186 to 187.5, or even higher than that. If Aapl gets the rug pull thanks to the Fed, it's going to come all the way down to 182.71, then 182.5. 182 flat. We have a lot of support in these areas. That's where the 50 EMA happens to be. And if it breaks below that, 181.5. This is where we have this wick right here, followed by I think there's a gap. There's a gap here from the pre-market to 180.8, then 180, 178, 177.5, and potentially 176.5 and 175. It could even break to the high 160s if we get a big rug pull thanks to the Fed. So you have to watch that carefully. If Nvda is bullish, we're going to be watching 420, and if it breaks that, it could see 425 plus. If not, if we don't see the Fed help the markets pump, we're going to be watching support at 400 to 396. And if that fails us, 380 could come pretty quickly. It could break below this 385 support, come down pretty hard thanks to the Fed. So be careful with that. And 377 is going to be very significant if 380 fails us. For Google, if we're bullish, okay, if the Fed helps the market pump, we're going to be watching 128, which is where we have this imbalance. If it breaks this, 130 could come. If we get a rug pull from the Fed, you're going to be watching 122, 120, then potentially 119 for Google, or even lower than that. It could drop much lower. For Amazon, it's basically the same, very similar levels as Google. If Amazon gets a pump, we're going to be watching 128. If it breaks that, 130 plus could come. If not, it could come all the way down to 123, then potentially 122. 120, 119, then potentially even 115, all the way down there if you get a big rug pull. So we got to be careful with Amazon, man. It has a lot of imbalances down there. For Meta, if we're bullish, you're going to be watching 276. If it breaks that, 280 plus could come. If not, it could come all the way down to support at 269. If that fails us, there's 264, 258, and potentially 250 if we get an even bigger drop below 258. So lots of volatility is coming. I'm very sorry that, or I'm not really sorry about this, but the truth is, guys, I'm not a fortune teller. I am not a genie. I do not know exactly what's going to happen tomorrow. Okay, that's why I can't truly give you guys a prediction. I just have to break down both the bullish and bearish cases in this video. And for the majority of the week, it's going to be that way, guys. I'm really sorry. I really wish I could just tell you everything, but I can't, honestly. So that's part of trading. That's part of investing. You have to be open-minded and prepared for all of these different nuances and possibilities. All right. From a technical standpoint, the market looks bullish. It looks strong, but that could all change because of Jerome Powell and the Fed. I want to keep this video short, so please be ready for tomorrow. In the morning, PPI is coming out. We're going to react to PPI just as a reminder. Then after that, the market could see lots of volatility, maybe even slow down as time goes on. But then it doesn't matter too much because everything is going to depend on this interest rate hike decision. Get ready. If we get the pause, market's likely going to rip in the future. It may not happen immediately. I think immediately we're going to get a nice push up, but this could change depending on what Powell says during the press conference at 2:30 p.m. But what I'm trying to say is not every move is going to be made on the same day. It could take like the next day, the next couple of trading days. It could happen by next week. The bigger moves to the upside, the uptrend could still continue over time. It does not all have to happen tomorrow. All right. So the pause will increase the odds of an uptrend over the next couple of trading days, next couple of weeks, okay? We could still see a big pump. We could see Tesla hit those like 270 plus area, 275, maybe 290 to 300 if we get a huge pump. 275 at the very least, I would say, if we get a nice pump. For SPY, 442, then potentially 450 if that breaks. Now, if the opposite happens and they give us a rate hike and they surprise the markets, expect a rug pull and be ready for it. So it's your job to position yourself, to be ready for it, and to manage risks. I'm not giving any financial advice in this video. Let me make that clear. It's all your own choices. So do what you have to do now that you have this information, and I want the best for everyone. Get ready for tomorrow. It's going to be a crazy day. Market to the moon alongside Tesla as the long term is still incredibly bright. And don't forget about my merch that I have. I have some like caps and hoodies and tank tops if you guys are interested in buying anything. And with that said, thank you all so much for listening. Tesla to the moon once again as the long term is still incredibly bright. And peace out.